In 1912, the world was told that an ocean liner could be unsinkable. The ship was named RMS Titanic. The promise was safety, luxury, and comfort on the sea. The reality would be one of the worst maritime disasters in history. This is not just a story about a ship. It is a story about human pride, overconfidence, and the moment when nature gives its own verdict. Titanic was built by the White Star Line at the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast. It was designed to be the largest passenger ship in the world at that time, part of a class of 3 ships, Olympic, Titanic, and Britannic. It was meant to be bigger, faster, and more luxurious than anything that had come before. The design included 16 watertight compartments that were supposed to keep the ship afloat, even if several of them were flooded. That idea gave birth to the legend. Titanic was practically unsinkable. But practically unsinkable was never truly unsinkable. The ship was not magic. It was a machine, built by humans, sailing a sea that never promised to be kind. The company, the engineers, the newspapers, all repeated the story. This ship is so strong, it can survive almost any damage. The real danger was not in the steel or the rivets, but in the belief that humans had finally conquered the ocean. On May 31st, 1911, Titanic was launched in Belfast. The ship slid slowly into the water, with crowds watching, music playing, and newspapers calling it a new era of travel. Over the next months, workers added the final details: carpets, polished wood, elegant cabins, and the famous grand staircase. The first-class dining room could seat hundreds. There was a pool, a squash court, even a Turkish bath. Titanic was not just a ship. It was a floating palace, a symbol of progress and modern comfort. On April 10, 1912, Titanic left Southampton on her maiden voyage. There were over 2,200 people on board. Rich, famous, immigrants, workers, all chasing their own dreams on the other side of the Atlantic. The ship carried lifeboats for about half of the passengers and crew. That was technically within the rules of the time, but it was far from enough for a full evacuation. The crew, led by Captain Edward Smith, believed in the ship's strength. The sea looked calm, the lights were bright, and the legend of the unsinkable ship made the risk feel very small. As the days passed, the ship sailed faster, cutting through the Atlantic night. Warnings came in. Icebergs had been reported in the area. The temperature was dropping. The sea was getting colder. But the ship did not slow down as much as it should have. Speed, image, and reputation were still more important than caution. The idea that the ship was unsinkable filtered into every decision, even if no one spoke the word aloud. At 11:40 p.m. on April 14, 1912, lookouts spotted a dark shape ahead. An iceberg. The bridge ordered a quick turn. The ship tried to avoid it, but it was too close. The starboard side of Titanic scraped along the iceberg, tearing open the hull below the waterline. The damage was not a single clean hole. It was a long, jagged set of weak points, letting freezing water rush into several compartments. The design could tolerate a few flooded compartments, but now several were flooding at once, one after another, overwhelming the ship's balance. Inside the ship, many passengers felt a soft thud or a vibration. A few looked up, shrugged, and went back to what they were doing. The upper deck still looked calm. The lights still shone. The band still played. But deep below, the ship was slowly losing its power to stay above the surface. Titanic was not sinking like a small boat. It was sinking like a giant machine. Gradually, heavily, as if the sea had decided to take it slowly. The crew tried to respond. They launched lifeboats, but many were not filled to capacity. Women and children were given priority. Some men refused to leave. Some were told to stay back. The myth of the unsinkable ship was still in the air, even as the bow began to dip lower. The sea was no longer offering comfort. It was claiming its price. Around 2:20 a.m. on April 15th, the ship's bow was completely underwater. The stern rose high into the sky, a dark, broken shape against the stars. For a few seconds, the ship seemed to hang there, balanced between the sky and the sea. Then the structure broke. The ship tore itself apart. The stern plunged into the deep, dragging the rest of the body with it. The lights went out. The noise of the engines and the band faded, and the sea returned to silence. Of the approximately 2,200 people on board, about 1,500 lost their lives. Survivors described the cold so sharp it felt like fire, the darkness so thick it felt like nowhere, and the sound of the ship cracking, followed by the sound of nothing. Those who survived were scattered across lifeboats, floating in the middle of the Atlantic, watching the spot where the ship had vanished. The legend of the unsinkable ship had just become a graveyard on the ocean floor. After the disaster, the questions came fast. Why were there not enough lifeboats? Why did the ship continue at such a high speed through known ice fields? Why were the warnings treated like small details, not real red flags? The truth was clear. No ship, no matter how big or advanced, is truly unsinkable when it ignores the power of the elements. The sinking of Titanic changed the course of maritime history. International safety rules were rewritten. The number of lifeboats was increased. Training and emergency drills became mandatory. The unwritten rules of the sea became written laws because of the lives that were lost. But this story is not just about 1912. It is also about you. Every time you tell yourself, I don't need to be careful. I can handle everything. I'm too strong to fail. You are building your own version of the unsinkable myth. The real danger is not in the challenge, but in the belief that you are somehow immune to consequences. No one is invincible. No skill, no talent, no shortcut can protect you from the results of rushing, ignoring warnings, or refusing to ask, could I be wrong? Could I be underestimating the risk? The real strength is not pretending you are safe. It is staying humble, listening to the signals, and preparing for the storms that you may never see coming. Titanic's story teaches us that the biggest failures are not the ones we avoid, but the ones we pretend will never happen. When the ship met the iceberg, the myth of unsinkability crashed with it. But in the wreckage, a new truth was born. Real safety comes from honesty, from preparation, and from the courage to face reality, even when it looks harsh. In your life, your Titanic may not be a ship. It may be your business, your health, your relationships, or even your own mind. The iceberg may not be ice, but mischances, late decisions, or the belief that everything will be fine. The real victory is not avoiding the iceberg. The real victory is being honest enough to slow down, prepare in time, and respect the forces that are bigger than you. History is not written by the unsinkable. History is written by those who learn how to stay afloat.